Guys, I feel like the UFC messed up here, you know, with this whole booking a number one contender matchup, 2 months before you have a title fight. And I want to offer a different view here on the whole Dricus Du Plessis pulling out of the Israel Adesanya fight. It's it's something I can understand where people say, it's your one shot, it's your one opportunity to fight for the title, but I don't think it is. I think Dricus has really established himself as the clear number one contender. Nobody's done that to Robert Whittaker apart from the time that Israel Adesanya knocked him out. Robert Whittaker has been the best middleweight of the last 10 years apart from Israel Adesanya. Now, for Dricus Du Plessis to do that to Robert Whittaker, I mean, not just the knockout, I'm talking about taking him down so easily, staying on top for the whole round after he took him down, that puts him clear, in my opinion. If you look at the rest of the top 10, as we said, a couple of months back, when there was talk of Dricus maybe fighting Adesanya a couple of months back, Izzy's been through everybody, apart from Strickland. So, of course, now the UFC, they need to rush and they need to make a fight for September because they've already committed to a title fight, a middleweight title fight. But why did they do that? Why would you make a title fight 7 weeks after a number one contender fight? Especially a fight that a lot of people thought might be closer than it actually ended up being, where the fighters might have been banged up, from the fight itself, let alone possible injuries before a fight, that kind of thing. And we don't know the full extent yet of what's happened to Dricus, but I can understand why he wants to wait. And I think the UFC really, really has a chance with Dricus Du Plessis and Israel Adesanya to build something huge, particularly if they're looking at doing a card in Africa. You've got two African fighters. They don't like each other. The cage side moment alone probably had about 1 million pay-per-view buys sold right there. Now you've got the possibility, and I know it's a small possibility, but you've got the possibility of Strickland actually beating Israel Adesanya. So if that happens, you derail any plans of Dricus Du Plessis and Israel Adesanya, the big grudge match that you could have that's done how many million views? That cage side moment already has done about 2 million views. You derail any plans of that. Could you imagine if Sean Strickland actually goes and beats Israel Adesanya? What if Israel Adesanya beats him but gets injured and it's a long-term injury? He had issues with his PCL before he fought Alex Pereira. He still fought, but what happens if he re-injures himself? I think the UFC messed up the booking here a little bit. I think they should have had, if you want to have Israel Adesanya have a fight before Dricus, make that fight similar time to Dricus, or make Robert Whittaker and Dricus Du Plessis a little bit earlier, or make the fight a little bit later, depending on what you want to plan. But Dricus Du Plessis and Israel Adesanya are not going to fight each other until next year. That's pretty clear. And I still feel like Dricus is the number one contender. Now, Izzy does what Izzy wants. So if Izzy wants to fight Strickland, fair enough. He's going to fight him. They need to make that fight happen in Sydney. But they should have waited. I feel they should have waited. But it's there now, and the fight is happening. But I really, really feel like the UFC messed up. The problem with this is, if Izzy keeps fighting guys that maybe he's beaten already, so, Cannonier came out and said he wants to fight Izzy. Maybe Paulo Costa beats Hamza Chimaev, and then they have to have a Paulo Costa fight again. Izzy's a massive star. I mean, like Charles Sonnen said, he's probably going to start rivaling Conor McGregor. I don't know if that's possible, but he's going to be the biggest star, and probably is the biggest star in the UFC at the moment. So you run the risk, and I always look back on the time when Anderson Silva fought, I think, Talis Latis. I forget. The crowd turned on him because, it was a boring fight from Talis' side, but Anderson Silva, it was an easy fight for him, and the crowd booed. And Anderson Silva was probably the most entertaining fight of all time. Now, if the Strickland fight goes the way we think it should go, yes, it will be an entertaining knockout, but people could turn on Izzy. You run the risk of that. So I still think this fight makes no sense with Strickland. It's a tune-up fight for Izzy, and the UFC really screwed up the booking here. They still have the chance, even though this fight is going ahead, they still have the chance to make that fight, UFC Africa, possibly between Dricus and Izzy, but I think they should have planned a little bit better. And again, I understand people saying Dricus needs to go and he needs to fight, he just needs to step up and do the fight, but he's the clear number one contender. He can sit back and wait and see what happens. He doesn't have to fight Adesanya for the title. If Strickland wins the title, he can fight Strickland for the title. He just wants a title. Doesn't matter who it's against. But Izzy and Dricus, just on that cage side moment, will do numbers, I feel, that would put it in the top 5 or top 10 pay-per-views of all time if they were to fight each other. So UFC needs to scramble to do whatever they can to make that fight happen, whether it's next year, whether it's at the end of the year. But if Strickland beats Izzy in Australia, they've got a problem on their hands. A big, big problem. So yeah, UFC messed up on this one, guys. There's money that they might leave on the table. And also, what does that mean for the rest of the middleweights? The middleweight division seems to be a little bit chaotic at the moment. There's talk of Hamzat coming in. Jared Cannonier has been impressive. Bo Nickel is in the picture. So, I mean, look, the UFC is going to do, what's best for business, and they'll always have business. But if they had just waited and made Israel Adesanya versus Dricus Du Plessis, they could have added that to the New York card. They possibly should still do that. That's where the money lies.